Hi, welcome to SBR Sports Picks. I'm Peter Loshak. Today is Thursday, September 8th, and it's week 2 in college football. We are talking with Jeff from BMOCWins.com about a handful of games, and right now we're going to cover Iowa State and Iowa. Jeff, thanks so much for being back with us. You excited for a week 2 in college football?
I am. On the videos, I was a little lackluster last week. But Peter, last year I bounced back in a big way the whole year. So we're going to be just fine. I'm excited.
And you got notably stronger at the end of last season, particularly in bowl season. You started to really kill it in the second half, and then bowl season, you just flat out nailed it. All right, Iowa State and Iowa is the game we're going to cover here. And this is another interesting game. It's always interesting when these Iowa teams, the in-state rivalries, play each other in football and in basketball in the beginning of the season. And we see a lot of upsets, right? A lot of times these teams play over their heads when they're playing their in-state rivalries. We saw that last week. Iowa State lost to Northern Iowa as a 9.5-point favorite in the FCS. Iowa is a team that I sort of have circled as vaguely overvalued and overrated right now. They did roll Miami, Ohio, but they were a little bit too big of a favorite. They didn't cover. The Cyclones have actually won 3 out of the last 5 matchups. The road teams tend to do well. The underdogs tend to do well. I'm thinking Iowa State getting 15 points here, even though they lost to Northern Iowa last week, might be a great play. What do you think?
I mean, they did give up 232 yards to Northern Iowa on the ground.
Oh, it was bad. Yeah.
If I just look at it this way, Peter, if they couldn't stop the Panthers, what makes you think they're going to stop Akeem Wadley in this big-time run offense from Iowa? I also looked the last week. Iowa actually had some bad luck in that game. About 5 minutes into the game, lost their star linebacker who had 124 tackles this year, and their defense looked lost at times. Miami of Ohio kind of moved the ball around. I think with Kurt Ferentz, he gets a new deal this week. You mentioned it. The history is there. Iowa State has played well, but, for me, I just look at Iowa and say to myself, I can't back Iowa State. This team wasn't in that game at all, really, against Northern Iowa. They were gashed on the ground, and I think – you look at Iowa, they're a power team, kind of remind you a little bit of Arkansas on the way. I think they're going to run all over this team. And I think the bounce back from the defense, this is a really good defense. And I think they were a little bit exploited last week without Josie Jewell in the lineup. I think they come back here, and I think they lay a smackdown. I think it's like a 38-17 type of game. I just don't think they can continue to take the Cyclones lightly here.
Yeah, no, I hear you totally. If you look at just what happened to Iowa State on paper, it was just embarrassing, and you have to think they're going to get blown out here. And you're absolutely right. The final score was a little bit misleading. Iowa was up early, big time on Miami, Ohio. It's just in these rivalry games, Iowa against Iowa State, Northern Iowa against Iowa, whatever, any of those configurations, they tend to the underdogs tend to outperform in my experience. And we see a lot of times, of course, in college football. We saw it last year when Stanford, lost to Northwestern. You're like, what happened? And then, of course, they went on to have that year. There's a lot of misleading situations in week 1, and then teams put things back together in week 2, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it here. Iowa was kind of, like I said, they were lost on defense. Yes. I think they're going to take that. This is the kind of team that bounces back after poor performances. And look, they gave up 20-plus points to Miami of Ohio. That should never happen. They got their guy back. I think Desmond King will play like the All-American that he is. I think he's really going to shut down Iowa State. I'm not a big Cyclone guy. They have a new coach. Yeah. They committed 4 turnovers last week, and they're just in a really bad spot. Now they're going to go into Iowa. I just think it's a decent number, I guess, if you like the dog. But for whatever reason, I see this as like 38-17, honestly. I think Iowa bounces back here.
I'm also thinking about this. Sorry to extend this call up, but I'm also thinking about the under. These Iowa State-Iowa games tend to be very low scoring. If you look at them historically, you're absolutely right. Iowa, I think, has a very strong defense that underachieved a little bit last week, and they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They might want to, really look to pitch a shutout or a low-scoring game here. What do you think about a shot with the under 51.5?
Yeah, and for as bad as they played, they still only gave up 21 points. They did benefit from some turnovers, but this, Iowa definitely likes to run the ball. I could see it staying low scoring, but I just think the better side's Iowa. I'm gonna think that they rebound here.
All right, Jeff from BMOCWins.com, liking Iowa currently -15. Thanks so much, as always, Jeff.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.